back again with this little girl. We just finished carving her face, and I thought, well, let's go ahead and do the color part. That's fun. That's always a fun part. And I know I've done lots of Blythe dolls before, but for those of you who are new to my channel, we'll be doing another one. Some of the parts maybe a little different from the past. I'm not sure, but first of all, I did coat it with this Liquitex matte medium. This gives a little bit of tooth or grip to the pastels and watercolor pencils that I use. What do I use for tools? Let's see. Watercolor pencils. I use pastels. There's a huge box of them. I use this little eraser because it's good for erasing boo-boos. I also usually have a cuticle stick because I can wet it, and sometimes that helps me to correct boo-boos. This thing, I use it on everything. A pointy tool. It's just great for everything. I don't know. I'll probably end up using it. Collection of brushes. This one I always use for blush because it makes it go on smooth. This one I cut, and I like it because it's good for eyebrows or maybe lips. Little pointy round ball tool to make the little dots sometimes that we need, like for freckles or whatever. There's just another small, a really tiny brush sometimes I use, and sometimes I have to use a Q-tip to help smudge things. So those are pretty much the things I end up using most. And the process is not always the same. I don't always use watercolor pencils on the lips. I sometimes use pastel colors, like, to smudge it. And sometimes I'll just use acrylic paint. So, I guess what I would say is that pastels tend to be more muted and smoother. So those are for things like blush, shading kind of colors. More distinct colors, I would either use the pencils or just actually use some watercolor, some acrylic paint. So I've decided to do this particular doll, sort of a natural look, nothing outlandish. The lips will be the main part that I want to really work on getting them shaded right. I want to put darker colors on the inner parts, and then the parts that would catch light, that would stick out more, which would be this part, this part, this part, this part, this part. Those will be a little bit lighter, and then maybe do an outline around the top. That's what I'm thinking. So, as far as the other parts, I tend to use a lot of pastels just because they're nice and smudgy. So, I think I'll put freckles on this girl too. We'll show you how to do that. That'd be fun. So, I think I want to work on the lips maybe first. So, I'm just going to do a little bit of an outline with this pencil. And this will be sort of the darker part. This will give me sort of the definition to work with as I start adding in with pastels. I always get disappointed with watercolor pencils for one reason or another. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I just don't always feel like they work well on dolls. But then I'll end up going over them with paint or something else, but we'll see. With using watercolor pencils, you can always get rid of it because it comes off with water. So I think I'll turn this up so I can get underneath here. I like this part to be darker because it's, it's in the shadow of the overhanging lips, so I think it's appropriate. I think I told you in the last video where we were carving this that I don't always like to do the ridges. You know, like a lot of people will put the creases in, actually cut them in the lip. And I've just never been that good at it. It always just doesn't seem to work right. So if I do it, it'll be done with color as opposed to actual carving. Now the other thing you can do with watercolors is, you know, you could put this down and then go back with a brush and add, you know, a little bit of a damp brush that would set the color down and maybe make it a little bit more solid or look less patchy. I'm trying to make the lips, you know, a little bit bigger by outlining really around the edge so that I get the most I can out of this real estate. It's just not a lot with these Blythe dolls that you have to work with, so you have to use all the tricks that you have to make the mouths look a little different. We've already done about all we can do as far as carving, you know. We've made them as big as we can. Alright, so that's a nice outline. Now what I think I will do is take some chalk or pastel in this shade, which is similar to this, and shade the inner part. Now, I just picked that up, and I want to warn you, if you do that, it's going to get on your fingers, and then if you touch the doll's face, it's going to get on the face, so be careful with that. What I tend to do is I'll have a water bottle here that sprays, and I'll spray it on a paper towel and wipe my fingers in between just to make sure they're clean. Also, that water bottle comes in handy for other things. Always have it handy by. Alright, so I'm going to use a small brush and I get some of this and go on the really inner part of the lip. You know, depending on how this doll is positioned, it's going to depend on whether you actually see much of the inside of the lip. My husband's baking and he can't hear, so the alarm of the oven is going off, telling him that whatever he's cooking is done, but he's deaf. He can't hear it. You know what that means? It means I'm going to have to go tell him. So, hang on, I'll be right back. Okay, got the alarm off. I don't know why he even sets the alarm if he can't hear it. I told him, set your phone, you know, so it's there with you. Oh, the joys of aging. So, you can see now I've kind of got outline on the outside and the inside. I'm going to go in here. I can't really get to this really inner part very well, and I want it to be colored if at some point you can see into the doll's mouth. So I'm just coloring in down in there, which is the back part of the mouth. So you know what he's doing in there? He's resetting the timer because apparently it's done. So it's going to go off again. Great. Just great. Okay. Well, the joys of life. All right. So I'm going to go into the crease there a little bit. And come up a little bit more. So we're going to blend this, so I want to have it so that the dark part is a little bit further up. So when I start blending it, you know, it'll be visible. And if you, by the way, if you tried to look at the last video, the one about carving the lips, and you were not, and you got like this really short little, just a title thing, I'm really having trouble uploading. I don't know what's going on, but I'm trying to re-upload, and it's taken like hours for it to re-upload, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong. But if you did, I am going to try to re-upload that video so you'll be able to see it. For some reason, that's just not coloring. There's a little place there. Well, I'll put a little extra color in here. Okay, now I want a little bit more neutral color to blend. So I'm thinking either this, or maybe a little of both. By the way, if you just use a brush that you've just used, you want to try to get some of that color off so you don't just keep putting the same color down. So we're just putting this kind of over top of the darker color and blending. If you get any powder, blow on it. Hopefully it'll go away. That's the thing with pastels. I love the color because it's nice and muted, but it does go everywhere. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Just think I need some more darkness. Doing this sort of shading just gives the lips some additional dimension than it would have if you just painted it all one color. And the way, you know, light catches our face plays a role. The same is true of makeup. If you've ever done makeup, you know, you can use dark colors on areas that you want to sink back on your face, and light colors on areas that you want to bring closer or come out, like your cheekbones, you know, that sort of thing. Let me put this over there. Always clean your fingers because you will forget. Sure enough, there goes the alarm again. Let's see if he hears it this time. Doesn't look like it. So annoying. Oh my gosh. Alright, I'm gonna have to go tell him. Hang on. Alright, I'm back. Now, I want to get the crease a little bit darker. So what I'm gonna do is use a little bit of brown. This really feels like it's not sticking, but I think if I put enough coats, it'll be alright. Now, if you get any on area, Q-tips are good for wiping that away. You can even wet them if you have to. Alright, so that looks looking pretty good. So now I want to put some color on her cheeks. And I usually start with a really soft color, so I'm just going to start with this really soft peachy pink color, because I don't want it to be really strong, and then I can always build it up if I need to. So I like this brush because it tends to put it on pretty evenly without any streaking. It's really light, but that's okay. You can always darken it up. Plus, having it maybe lighter in one color and darker in another is another way to add some dimension. Now, while I don't have much on the brush, I'm going to do some across the bridge of the nose, because I like that sort of sun-kissed look. This is where the sun would hit. And I'm going to give her some freckles in a minute, and that'll sort of be a nice base for that. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of a darker color pink on top of this. Also like to shade around the top of the face just to give it a little bit more color, and so it's not just so flat. Makes the forehead pop out a little bit. Alright, now I'd like to do a little shading around the eye, and I like to usually use brown. So I'm going to use this brush, and going to use this color. I always dip it in the pastel, and then I wipe it off because I don't want it to be a really strong color. I want to build the color. That way you make less mistakes. And you can tell, even though I wiped this off, it's still pretty strong, so it's okay. So I tend to keep the colors sort of to the outer edge, not so much in here. I like to put maybe a little bit of blue in there. And then I'll take a different brush that doesn't hopefully have any color on it. And do this, which is sort of fading it, brushing it outward, so it doesn't look like it, just abruptly ends. You know what I'm saying? Alright, so I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Oh. Whoops. Kind of got a little bit too far over there. So I'm going to take a wet Q-tip. That's one good thing about putting down that matte medium or any kind of base coat. Mr. Super Clear for their base coat, I tend to prefer not to. I like using Mr. Super Clear as the finishing coat. I think it's really unparalleled in that matte finish that it can provide. But I really have been enjoying using the Liquitex matte medium as the base coat. And sometimes I'll even put more than one coat on if I really want to get a good grip to my pastels and everything. Again, I'm just sort of using this clean brush to blend. Sometimes when you put the pastels down and you don't do this, they're so strong that they could, later bleed into an area that in a way that you don't like. Alright, so, and the other thing is, when you're doing colors, sometimes I base it on, like, the hair color or the costume I'm going to have the doll wear. Like, I want, it to match it. But this one, I haven't really decided yet, and I think it's a doll that's going to travel with me, so it'll probably be wearing more than one type of outfit, so that's why I'm going for more of just a kind of neutral look. Something that will go with everything. And this is really how I tend to progress. Like I'll work on an area for a while and let it sit for a little bit and then go back and look at it, see if I need to darken some areas or whatever, till I get it to where I want it to be. Alright, now I'm going to probably work on the eyebrows, and what I'll do is use this brush. It's good for putting down color in a concentrated way, but I usually put a lighter color for the eyebrows, and then I'll go over it with a darker color in the watercolor pencil to make it look like actual hairs. And eyebrows are really to me the soul of the doll. They really tell the story of the doll's expression. So, you know, if you haven't seen my video on eyebrows, I actually did a video on eyebrows, talking about how, you know, different shapes of the eyebrow will change the expression. If you start low and go high, that's an angry look. If you start high and go low, that's a surprised or vulnerable look. Just flat across is kind of a neutral, and that's kind of where I want to be. Also, if you place them up high or low, it's going to affect how the doll looks. So for this particular doll, I'm thinking I want them to be rather low. And I'm really just putting this down as a background color. I'm not putting it down as the final look, in other words. Because if I don't like it, I can always wipe it off, right? This is a good way to see if you like the position of the brows or not. Also, you know, I think a lot of people have trouble getting the brows to be symmetrical, which is, you know, I guess as people, our eyebrows are not always symmetrical, so that's okay. It doesn't have to be completely symmetrical, but it does help a little bit, I think. So making sure you have them the same distance from the nose and, you know, approximately the same height is a good idea. All right, I like that. Now, I'm going to take a darker brown pencil and use this to make more hair-like look over top of this color. And usually I'll use more than one color because we tend to have more than one color in our eyebrows. So eyebrows near the beginning are more straight up. As you go over, they tend to lie down and be flatter. So that's the first pass. I'm really looking forward to taking my dolls to Paris. I think it'll be fun to have some pictures there with the dolls. Yeah, come back too. So when you have them looking pretty much the same, then you may want to go in and do a little bit of darker color, and I do want to find my pencil sharpener. So this one's pretty dull. The other thing to think about with brows is they tend to somewhat coordinate with hair color. So if you have black hair, for instance, you're probably going to have black eyebrows. People with blonde hair tend to have lighter, although I'm an exception to that. I have blonde hair and I have nearly black eyebrows, which is interesting, but it's one reason I think black, the color black looks good on me, so I don't mind. I like to wear black. Alright, we're going to leave that for now, see how that goes. I do want to do a little bit more shading up here, and I think I want that to be in more of a pink color. So you can just blend it right into that brown that you've already got down there. That makes it look nicer. Coming along, coming along. Sometimes I'd like to go in here and just put a little darker brown just to define the eye a little bit more. There, that looks pretty nice. I like that. And now I would like to put a little bit of blue on either side here, very faint, but we do have that sort of look. It's kind of I think from the vessel, the blood vessels, you know, the veins, sort of a bruised color. It's really funny when you look at your face and you start seeing all the different colors. You know, you think it's, oh, it's just going to be like this one flat color, but it's not. Okay. And I want to take this brush that I used for the blush, try to get all the color off of it, and buff out the edges here. Alright, I think there's a little bit of color there. I don't know where that came from. See if I can get it off with a Q-tip. Fortunately, everything is within arm's reach. Just wet the Q-tip and rub over it. Just with some stray color from somewhere. Alright, now the nostrils I think should have some color in them. They shouldn't just be that little opening. So I'm just going to use a dark brown. On this brush and just go in there and swipe it around. Create a little color. You don't want it to be too dark, then it starts to look like it's drawn on. The other thing I'll do is when I get a brush, like it has some brown on it, and I try to get as much of it as I can, then it's amazing. There's still a little bit on there, and you can go in and do some really subtle shading, like around the nostrils or something like that. It looked good, but you're not putting down like a ton of color. But it just adds a little bit more to the look of the face that's a little more realistic. Alright, that's coming along nicely. Now, I said I was going to give her freckles, and I am. I'm going to do it. Now, there's a variety of ways to do this. Everybody has their own special technique, and I'm no exception to that rule, but I like to be a little more controlled about it. Some people like to put it on a brush and then flick it and make, you know, the drops, and that's nice. It's a really nice effect if you don't make a mistake, because, you know, it looks very random, which is how freckles are. But I tend to always mess it up, and I've just spent all this time putting color down on the face and making it look nice, and so I tend to want to be a little more controlled. So what I'll do is put a little bit of water in a thing like this, and then I'll put some paint, some brown paint in the water, because you want the freckles to be opaque. I mean, well, more transparent. You don't want them to be like this harsh brown color. You want it to be like you're seeing the skin through it, which is how they really are. So I'll make a wash out of some brown paint, and then I'll use my ball tool, which is here somewhere. There it is. Ah, this, or you can also use the end of a cuticle stick, which is nice because it kind of it will absorb some of the color. Actually, I think that's what I'm going to use. Now, warning, always have little small pieces of paper towel handy because you want to blot it. So I'll just tear up some pieces of a paper towel I had here and have them ready, because you want to put this down, let it dry just a little bit, and then blot it. Alright, so this always makes me nervous. Let's see. So I usually try, to see how it works before I do a whole bunch. First of all, I want to see if I like the color and if I need it to be a little darker, and I think I do want it to be a little darker. So I'm not going to put more of that color. I'm going to put a little bit darker brown in it. Some burnt umber. Well, oh well. keeping in mind the more paint you put in it, the thicker it makes it too. So there's always the chance you may need to add more water. But I think at this point I did need to make it a little thicker as well as darker. I mean, you could do different colors of freckles too. I mean, they're not always the same color, so you can maybe, you know, go with a lighter color, then go back and do a darker color interspersed. All right, let's try this again. That's still pretty light. I think I need to leave it on there a little bit longer. Although I'm getting a nice effect. I don't know if you can see it, but it's freckly looking. I'm going to put a little bit more of this in there. Darken it up just a little bit more. Also, if you know, when I put that paper towel down, you want to put it straight down on it and take it straight back up. You don't want to swipe it over it, because then you'll just smear the freckle. You just want to blot it and remove the excess moisture that's there. You could use a small paintbrush for this too, or a toothpick. Lots of things you can use. And you want to make them different sizes too. You don't want them to all be big or small. You want them, you know, to look like freckles. The longer you leave the paint before you blot it, the darker they'll be. So just have to experiment with that a little bit. That's why I kind of do it in sections. I don't do it all at one time, that way. That's looking better. Okay. I think that's looking pretty much like freckles. So we'll just keep doing this till we get as many as we want. Now, if you did want to use the splatter technique, you kind of do the same thing. You make your wash of a brownish color that you like, and then put some on a brush that has fairly long bristles, and be brave and flick it. I'm just not that brave. I've done it and I didn't like it. So that's coming along pretty well, frickly wise. I'm probably just about finished. Don't really want there to be that many. To be honest with you. Okay. Pretty cute. Pretty cute. Make that a little bit darker. All right, so I think I'm pretty happy with this part of the face. Since we're doing this project, I'll just go ahead and make another video showing you how to do the eyelids. While we're just working on this doll, we might as well finish her, right? So what I'll do at this point is I'll go ahead and spray this face with Mr. Super Clear to seal it, because I would like to protect it, and also pretty much satisfied. But if I feel like I needed to go back, you could always go on top of Mr. Super Clear, you know, so that's all right. One other thing I forgot. Woo! Sorry about that, just knocked my camera over. I like to put clear paint on the lips. Oh, this is stuck so hard. Okay, this is clear acrylic paint, and I bet I did actually go ahead and spray her with Mr. Super Clear, so there's a good base now. I can put this on top of without it making it run. Why do I always have to make mistakes? This gives the lips that glossy look that we like. I'll probably put another couple coats on, but anyway, that's pretty much it for that look, and I'll do another video and show you guys how to do the rest of the doll. Thanks, and bye.